Afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Park Lane Podcast, episode number 23. Thank you all very, very much for joining us today. My name is Luke. I'll be your host as always, but joined with me again, it's Harry. Harry, how are you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm very good, thank you, Luke. Pleasure to be here as always, and with you on Park Lane Podcast. What else could I ask for?
Exactly, mate. Saturday, it's half term.
Yeah, exactly.
What could you ask for? Talking about Spurs.
100%.
And Harry, just quickly jump onto that. You had your first show on your channel this week on Scarfy Spurs Talk. How was it?
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed it. I had a few technical issues to start with, which is completely my fault. But yeah, no, in the end, we got it working and it went well. And I'm looking forward to next Monday where I have my first guest on as well. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Amazing. Well, so for those of you that are wondering where Wynnie is, we are also wondering the same thing. So you may see him, you may not. So let's just crack on. So, Harry, actually, before we do that, we'll do the formalities, the subscribe and all the rest of it. If you like it, subscribe. If you don't like it, subscribe anyway. It's free to do so. Like the video. And if you're listening on any podcast platform, don't forget to give us a follow and a 5-star review, as it's free to do so. So, Harry, let's go back to last weekend and talk about Man City. Now, this still bugs me, this game, because it annoys me that Arsenal lost on the Saturday and then Spurs beat City on the Sunday, meaning that there's no gap closed on Arsenal at the top of the league. And, but we did get to win. And we did get to witness Harry Kane score 267th goal for Tottenham Hotspur and, break the all-time goal-scoring record. So let's go back to the start to begin with. City, without talking too much about City, I think it's important because, there was a lot of changes in that City team. There was obviously no Cancelo, no Diaz, no De Bruyne, and probably many, many others. What are your thoughts on kind of that game and, how Spurs performed in that game?
I thought it was a very good performance. Probably one of our better performances, if not our best, probably of the season. I thought we defended well, looked good going forward as well. Reminded me a bit of how we played last season. Obviously, it's typical Spurs, isn't it? When Arsenal lose to go on and win and make City lose. But yeah, I think it's a City team going through a sticky period and a bit of a transition. To be honest with you, a few question marks obviously around them in lots of different areas. But it was an important win, and I can say I was there to also see Harry Kane break the record. So it's still in my head. It's a great win, very good performance, and obviously you saw Kane break the record, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that must have been an amazing, experience for you because, I know that we are different ages, but I would say probably have seen 90+% of all Harry Kane's goals. Imagine when you are older and, that if that record never gets broken and he becomes an old man, like everyone does or every male does, and, get to the age that Jimmy Greaves was, to stand there and to say that you saw the day that he broke the all-time record, that must be a good feeling.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very good feeling. And to be honest with you, I can't see that record being broken, but we did say that with Jimmy Greaves, so who knows? But that's a phenomenal achievement from Kane, because as I said, nobody thought that would be broken. And like you said, Luke, to say that I was there and fantastic to tell future kids, grandkids, friends down the line is just fantastic to be there. And the atmosphere and that cheer when Kane scored, and smile from Kane, just fantastic feeling for everyone in the stadium.
Yeah, definitely. I want to ask you in a second about the atmosphere before the game, because obviously, there are a certain number of fans, including yourself, who are against the owners of Spurs. And, myself, I'm growing more and more frustrated with the way that Spurs are run.
Yeah.
But before we get on to that, I want to talk about, one of your favourite players, Højbjerg, because to go 1-0 up against City, we did the same as we did against them the last time, but we just managed to kind of hold on in this game. And we seemed to kind of go a little bit Pochettino-esque, I felt, with that high press from the front line.
Yeah.
It wasn't, throughout the whole team, but we did see that a lot more. And that's something I've been crying out for under Antonio Conte. And weirdly, it was obviously Stellini who was managing them. Now, obviously, he's going to go based on Conte's tactics. He knows Conte and all the rest of it. But I felt that high press and that winning the ball high up the pitch, which we did against City in the away game just a few weeks ago, really benefited us. And Højbjerg to win the ball back, hold off his man, and then have the ability and the awareness to just kind of off the side of his right foot over to Harry Kane. It was I thought it was absolutely immense from a player who does get hounded quite a lot.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic, Luke, being there. I mean, to keep the ball, to drive forward, to start the press, and then to find Kane is just incredible. And I thought most of the high press in the game was actually led, to be honest with you, by Højbjerg, or at least encouraged by Højbjerg. And it is a shame that Dave isn't here, but I thought Højbjerg had a fantastic game. For me, personally, maybe slightly biased, but I think he was man of the match. I mean, I thought there were some good performances in there, likes of Kane, likes of Emerson, likes of Romero, but Højbjerg stood out for me and he stepped up. And at times, I think he has been poor, especially defensively this season. I admit that. But once again, I think he has stepped up in attacking sense, taken that responsibility. And at the end of the day, got that assist. And Kane can turn back and say, look, the goal that broke the record, Højbjerg was there, got the assist, and an incredible bit of play. So I think he deserves credit for that.
Yeah, 100%. So let's go back, to before the game.
The
protests and the kind of upset from some of the Spurs fans, because I saw a lot of the banners kind of along the railings and whatnot, and saw the people. I don't want to say milling around because that sounds like negative, but like I didn't see much video of the kind of chants and things like that. But did you manage to get to that point? Like, I know it's difficult when you go to a game. Like, I always find that like getting there by a specific time to be able to like go to said things before the game. Like, did you manage to go down there or?
Well, obviously, I went and go to the stadium, and I didn't join in with the protest, but I saw the protest, saw the end of it. But I got there, I think half an hour before the stadium opened, about 1:30. I like to be early, but yeah, I missed the protest, but it didn't look as big as the one outside the training ground. To be honest, I stopped myself from joining in or leaving anything there. To be honest with you, because I had my full focus on the game, but obviously there had been protests and unrest there, and obviously left the flags and banners there. But what was surprising, Luca, there was no Levy or Wynnie out chants in the game before we went ahead, once we went ahead. So I don't know the reason for that. And what was this walkout protest? Not a single person that I saw walked out. So
yeah, definitely. And you know what? That's interesting, that part, because one thing I've been quite vocal about on Twitter has been that if we are going to protest, and I use the word we because, as a Spurs fan, I feel like we are a collective, regardless of which side of that fence you sit on.
100%.
That's the one thing that I've always talked about. And I will always keep talking about. It's all good standing outside the training ground. All good standing on Sky Sports News and saying, you hate, big on TalkSport, whatever it is, right? But that is the one thing that I think is the most powerful tool if you want to make a statement, for an owners, is you have to hit them where it hurts. And those things are in their pockets, right? They can turn off the TVs, they can ignore the chants, and all the rest of it. But, not spending money in the stadium, not spending money in the club shop and online, and walking out throughout games, or whether people believe this or not attending at all, are the most powerful tools, and will hit those owners where it really hurts. Because at the end of the day, the profit and loss for a football club are the points, in which they see the most revenue. Look at the recent financial statements that came out. The club sales and the club tickets. Those are the things that, match day revenue. Those are the things that are, of course, there are other things such as, sponsorships and media deals and other things like that, right? But the actual gate receipts and those things, they're the things that are going to really hit, where it hurts. And a game that is on Sky Sports live because I live in Scotland, right? So I don't get down as much as I should do. And people go on at me at Twitter, you don't go to any games. You're not a season ticket holder. How can you, do all these things? And regardless of that, right, I believe you can live wherever you like and support whoever you like.
Of course you
and
can.
that is your personal choice. But,
Yeah.
to be able to watch that game and see people walk out of the stadium, see people or just not turn up and empty seats. The amount of times that, European games or Europa Conference League games last season, when the stadium was half full and whatnot. Those are the things that make the most sense. So to me, that would be what I would do if I was adamant and very very stern and strict. This is what I want to do and this is what I want to achieve. But what are your thoughts on that? Because I know that maybe you have a slightly different view in terms of you shouldn't walk out of a football game.
Yeah,
but
I think
what
obviously.
Do you think about that whole?
Yeah, I think I partly agree with you. Actually, I think it's obviously fans should have the right to protest, and I'll never have a problem with any protest, whether I agree with it or not. I think there's a right to protest within reason. If it's not violent, it's peaceful, and peaceful protest, I'm fine and would probably join in with if I agree with. But I didn't want to have to say this, but I'm going to say it. I think the fans that organised the protest or the fans that wanted to take part, I think they bottled it in the end because the protest. I think they bottled it. That's the reality. We were winning, and they obviously had distracted. But if you notice, Luke, the people who organised the protest never turn up. They sit at home in front of a device, organising this all. All we know, we're leaving Inic out. We'll organise it. Remember to meet us there. They don't actually go. They won't be there. They'll be sitting watching TV or behind their screen, behind their sofa. And I call that bottling it, really, if you think about it. Obviously, not every fan could get to every game. Like you, Luke, you live in Scotland and you say, I agree with you, you can support any team you want. But you don't sit there, do you, organising all the protests and hyping it up and then don't turn up yourself or have any part in it. I think that's very hypocritical for people that do that. And I do see a lot of people doing that. So there was no protest. I understand perhaps for winning, but even beforehand, there was a few banners left there. But the atmosphere, it was good. There was no tension. There was nothing. Whereas the training ground protest, I felt there was a bit more, fans there and a bit more angry, passion there. I would say, but as I said, no, I didn't join in with it because I was too late. Perhaps it's because we signed Porro, perhaps it's because I don't know, transfer window ended. I don't know, but I reckon some fans, especially people who organised it above, bottled it. And that's the reality.
Yeah, fair enough.
To be honest.
Let's move back on because we talk about this all week, every week. Do you know what I mean? And so
yeah, absolutely.
I'm a little bit bored of it now, to be honest. But let's move on back over to Harry Kane because what an unbelievable achievement for somebody who a lot of people called over the years a one-season wonder. He's had a hell of a season, hasn't he, Harry Kane? If you think that's a one-season wonder, but. His finish probably wasn't the best goal that he's ever scored.
No, it wasn't. No,
very much a scuffed finish. But
it went in
just right to be able to go in.
Yeah.
But here's a question for you, and I know I don't always want to bring up that you're a young man, right? But you are, and so it may be more difficult. But do you have an all-time favorite Harry Kane goal?
All-time favourite Harry Kane goal? Probably that one against Arsenal. I could be wrong, but I think it was in something like 2017 at the old White Hart Lane. I remember watching on TV that one where it curled round. I believe it was, I can't remember if it was Rob Holding or if it was somebody else, curled round a couple of Arsenal defenders and went in past Petr Cech. I remember that is probably my favourite Harry Kane goal because of the situation, being in a North London derby. Just to accidentally do something like that, and he had his mask on, I believe, and he took it off when he scored.
Yeah.
That for me, even though it feels a long time ago for me, that's one of the things I do remember, and that will probably be my all-time favourite. I can't see that being beaten.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you. I was, funnily enough, I remember it, 100%. I was living in Dubai at the time.
Oh, right, yeah.
The first time I hadn't been there very long, and it was the first game that I went to the official UAE Spurs supporters bar. So there's they have maybe 50, 60 people that go on match days to a certain bar, and you can all sit and watch Spurs and everything else. And I remember it was the first time I went there, and I went on my own, and it was just unbelievable. I still remember it was Dele Alli by the corner flag, back heel the ball to Harry Kane, picked it up, shifts it to the right, and then just curled it into the back of the net. Yes. And it's just an absolutely fantastic finish from Harry Kane. And, I've said this, and you run out of superlatives to talk about Harry Kane. His passing ability, his driven nature, his coolness and calmness under pressure, always wanting more for this club, and his willingness to stick around as well for a football club. Like there are so many things and positives that you can talk about Harry Kane, but just for me, like his work ethic itself is just absolutely fantastic. And and I will be honest, I've said this a couple of times, but people maybe never have heard it or watched it. And I hate to say this, right? But many, many years ago, something flashed up on my Facebook. And it was like a status that I'd written, I don't know, about,
Right.
I want to say 10 plus years ago, like a long time, when Harry Kane was just coming through. And I genuinely wrote this, right? Harry Kane is too slow and not strong enough to be the standalone striker for Tottenham Hotspur. And, that's why I'm not in football, because how incredibly wrong I was. And, it just shows, everyone talks about Ronaldo, right? At his time at Manchester United, when he would come early and stand there and take 100 free kicks and then do, many different drills, even before the other team got there. And that's how he achieved where he got to. And I believe that is the same for Harry Kane. It is just not looked upon as brilliantly as his. Maybe it's because of the kind of player that he is. He's not flashy. He's not silky. I wouldn't say, he's just an absolute beast. And, it just blows my mind every time I watch him on the football pitch. And it's just an absolute privilege to support the club that he plays for. What are your thoughts kind of on that about Harry Kane, of how much he's kind of dragged himself from being barely playing on loan at teams like, Norwich, Leicester, Leyton Orient, other teams like that, right, that we could name, to then be able to become Spurs' all-time goal scorer?
Well, that just shows, Luke, for me, that shows where hard work, dedication, and a bit of self-belief, confidence, and being humble and listening takes you outside of football, in life in general, but also in football. Kane does obviously most of the talking on the pitch, but he's a fantastic professional and a fantastic player, someone who's always been humble, always probably listened to the coaches, and that's the player he is. People talk about the Ronaldos, Luke, but Ronaldo's a fantastic player, fantastic career, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't call him a fantastic professional, because if you listen to him, he's an arrogant player. Kane isn't arrogant. Kane's very humble. He's always willing to improve. Or if you're a coach, you talk to Ronaldo, do you think he's really going to want to listen to what you say, or going to listen? No. Whereas Kane will continue to, like, if Conte told Kane to try something or do so, Kane would listen, because that's the type of player he is. And I mentioned this on the final whistle last night. I said, even if Kane left, in the summer to any Premier League club, I still will be always thankful for what he's done, and fans have got to recognise that. Of course, it's not going to be great going to another Premier League club, but you've got to understand he wants to break Shearer's record. He probably wants to win a trophy, and the loyalty he's shown towards us fans, towards the club, towards everyone associated with the club, to stay with us. I mean, because he deserves to be winning trophies every season. That's the reality. So he's stuck with us, consistently performed, and whether we like it or not, we've relied on him a lot and consistently carried us. Fans have got to be forever thankful, regardless of what club he goes to, for what he's done for us, because I dread to think where we'd be without him, and that's the reality.
Yeah, it's a horrifying thought, isn't it?
Horrible thought.
To think about that. But moving on to kind of some things that have happened this week. So the first thing I want to talk about is Hugo Lloris's injury. So, it turned out that Hugo Lloris has had to have an operation, and now he's going to be out for some time. And Spurs have backup goalkeeper Fraser Forster in goal for the foreseeable future. And there's even rumours we're even looking at free agent Ben Foster to come and just be able to be backup to the backup, to be able to step in. Is that, we have slagged off Lloris a lot on this channel, but there is a worry to me that can Forster step up, in the big games. We always thought, we'll probably play cup games, but what's your thoughts on that? Are you kind of a little bit excited to see what he can do, or are you a little bit scared?
Bit of both, to be honest. I'm glad you brought this up, Luke, because I've got a strong opinion on this. I think obviously, yeah, we've slated Lloris and talked about him a lot because of his mistakes, and you can't ignore that. But at the end of the day, losing your first choice keeper and captain, it's obviously going to be a miss. And his professionalism, being the player that he is, it's obviously going to be a miss. Having your second keeper, regardless of how good they are, is going to be a miss. And Lloris makes fantastic saves. I think can be able to get on the floor quicker than Forster, for example. It's going to be a miss. Whatever way you look at it, it's a disadvantage to us. However, Fraser Forster, have faith in him, have trust in him. I think has had a great career. I think he's a fantastic goalkeeper. I mean, this is his opportunity, isn't it, to really show if he's up to it. Fans called for it. But yeah, I'm not going to say I'm scared. I'm more worried about Romero being out, to be honest, and thought with Sanchez playing instead. But I've always liked Fraser Forster in his career. I hope he can step up to it. Obviously, he needs the support from his defence and us fans, so we should get behind him. From minute one, I hope that the fans get behind him, whether that's on Twitter, whether it's watching the game on TV, whether it's going as the way supporters. We should get behind him. I wouldn't say I was worried about it, Luke. Obviously, I think we struggled to get on the floor. Maybe, obviously, his age being as quick as like Lloris, for example. But there's some things of his game I think he's fantastic. Like with his leg saves, for example, reminds me a bit of David De Gea. I think he's long distribution. I think he's a bit better than Lloris. So yeah, we can't ignore the fact that Lloris is going to be a miss. But I have full faith in Fraser Forster and this is his opportunity, and hopefully he can take it. And there's fans are already putting I don't know how to explain this, but kind of like waiting, like it's almost in their drafts for Forster to make a mistake to pounce on him. I feel like you got fans going, "This is your opportunity, Fraser Forster. Don't mess up." There shouldn't be that pressure there. This is his opportunity, a free opportunity if you like to take it. Of course, he's got to live up to the expectation, but I wouldn't say there's much pressure on Fraser Forster. This is his free opportunity to really have a say, and I think he's a fantastic keeper, and it's as simple as that.
Yeah, definitely. And, again, I think you're right. I think there is, people forget that when we signed him, he was number one goalkeeper for Southampton. And, he didn't
Have
get
a good career
position, without doing anything. And moving on to some more injuries, suspensions, that kind of thing. I won't touch too much on it, but we see Basuma's now out as well. Romero got sent off against City. Don't even get me started on Christian Romero. And I think also for the Champions League game, that Højbjerg is out, suspended as well. So that kind of middle two as such is going to be difficult to replace. But really quickly on Romero before we move on to the other two, I'll let you talk about them all three together, is I love Christian Romero. But I'm going to be honest, and people won't like this. I am yet to see from him a solid run of performances where I don't kind of cringe a little bit. Because he's been a decent centre-back, right? A decent centre-back. But I haven't seen Serie A Player of the Year centre-back performances consistently from him, And that's just me being completely honest. I think he's good. I think he's, young enough to be able to solidify that place. He used to play in the middle of a three, if I remember rightly. And so that's his preferred position. I think even for Argentina, he plays he plays on the right, so that's okay. I think due to, and forgive me for this, everyone, but I have got this theory about language reasons why they're in specific positions. That's my personal opinion. Because let's run through them, right? Emerson Royale speaks probably Portuguese because he's Brazilian.
Yeah, Portuguese, yeah.
Romero will speak Spanish because he's from Argentina. But the difference between Spanish and Portuguese is not a huge difference. They're able to communicate. And then Eric Dyer. But Eric Dyer could play on the right as well, I suppose, because he also speaks Portuguese.
Yeah.
So he has that ability. But that's my theory in why they're positioned the way they are. It might be that they don't want Romero as a middle centre-back because of his aggressive nature. But who knows? But that's the only issue I have with him. The first tackle on Haaland, there was really no need for it. And Jack Grealish's tackle, it's a red card. But Grealish is very, very, very clever in terms of it.
Clever,
I may be shut down here about Romero, but I'm not getting at him, right? Love Christian Romero. But it's not like, when Van Dijk came to Liverpool and he was just an absolute powerhouse and everybody stood up and watched and said, do you know what? Because I always remember Van Dijk being running backwards against Harry Kane when he played for Southampton. And Harry
Yeah.
Kane just dinked it to one side. He falls over and Harry Kane's through. That's not the Van Dijk you see at Liverpool.
No.
And so I want that Romero to kind of shine week in, week out and to have dominating performances. But maybe it's just changed to a new league. Who knows? But yeah, off you go.
I'm glad you made that point, actually, because it's interesting because I've been thinking similar, let's say, especially towards the start of the season. But firstly, Romero's red card. I mean, what was he doing? That second tackle, although it was really, really clever from Jack Grealish, watching it back, the way Jack Grealish done it. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and criticise Grealish because it's clever what he's done. And if you're a City fan, you like that. It's very, very clever from him. But we had cover, and he's not in the best position in the world, being honest with you. I can't see him getting any further than what he was. It's just very unnecessary from Romero. I mean, the first tackle was unnecessary on Haaland, but I like a little bit of that in a big game, to be honest with you. Take the yellow. I don't have a problem with that. I'd love to see that more in the North London derby. So I like what Romero done, actually, with the first tackle. You're muted.
I like Romero's ability, by the way. So, like the way he strides forward and joins the attack.
I like his passion as well.
I like that from him. Yeah, and I like his passion. But as you say, that first tackle, was the bit that I just thought was so unnecessary.
Yeah, it was unnecessary. And obviously, I like to see a little bit of it, maybe save it for the derbies a bit. But again, Luke, I'd say the second one is equally as stupid because Jack Grealish is going nowhere. And we had, 2 or 3 players at least with cover, one being Dyer. I can't see him get past Dyer would have probably taken him out as well. But touching on Romero, I thought this actually, the start of the season, I thought was really poor. And actually, I don't like to criticise him, but I did on social media criticise Romero towards the start of the season. I think I went to the game when we beat Fulham 2-1. It was his mistake that let Fulham back in the game, and then he made another mistake in a row. The type of thing like the Reece and Dyer have been doing, not necessarily lately, but over the whole of the season, that he went through that period. I like him, and I would say he's probably our best central defender. I don't think it's debatable. I love his passion, love his ability, I love his drive forward. But yeah, perhaps consistently hasn't taken that responsibility. I'd like him to see that. Like, he isn't perhaps the physical presence Van Dijk. I think he's one of the best centre backs in the Premier League, but I would have hoped he'd been the best. You look at Arsenal with Saliba. I mean, he's been as good as Romero, so we haven't got anything necessarily special. I like Romero, but we need more than one Romero's, to be honest with you. And perhaps he's not as good as I thought he was. I think he's suffered with injury problems. I think he's always someone who's going to pick up a lot of yellow and red cards, a bit like Ramos, has done over his career. I think that's something we've got to accept. And I love the passion. But what I question is, why didn't we see, not from him, but the whole team, why didn't we see that, by the way, press and passion that we showed against Manchester City? Why didn't we see that against Arsenal? That's the question. I didn't see a tackle like that from Romero.
90% of the season so far.
Yeah, I didn't, not being funny, and I like Højbjerg, but I didn't see that against Arsenal. And even, again, I like Romero, not being funny again. I mean, I never saw that, although he got yellow card for it, I never saw that passion against Arsenal. Perhaps they didn't have chance for that. It was a whole team. We didn't show, I mean, against City, I'd rather us given everything for the North London derby and not turned up against City, because the North London derby is the one that matters to me. All derbies matter to me, but the North London derby the most. I mean, them doing the double over us, it's just annoying, and we're in a lot better position now. It's funny, once those games are done, like if we played them now, I think it'd be a slightly different story. But the passion, Luke, we showed against City and the determination, that was a win for Conte, by the way. We showed none of that against Arsenal 10 minutes before the end. So I question the players for that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move on to a little bit of unrest this week over a specific female singer. Her name is Beyonce. So there's been some drama this week on social media. I don't know if you've seen this, right? But I can't help but laugh, and I'm sorry if anyone, if anyone is negative about Beyonce. But my God, how much and I know it's Twitter, and we should take it with a pinch of salt. But so for those that don't know, Beyonce's playing at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which automatically is a thing that people don't like, because people don't like extra revenue for the club, because it doesn't get spent and blah, blah, blah. Right? I'm not going to go into it. But she then announced a new date, which happens to fall on the same date as the FA Cup final, right? Tottenham might not even be in the final. The final's not even going to be at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But the fact that that some fans, this is the argument, right? And I'll try and explain it best way I can. So the argument is that some fans are upset that they may not be able to, or won't be able to, dance on the high road, was the kind of quotes that I read. And, parade up and down the high road. If Tottenham were to get to an FA Cup final, then win the FA Cup, when the majority of fans would be at Wembley anyway, and B, can't watch the game at the stadium, which only ever happened when we were in the Champions League final. So, try and unpick that for me.
Wow, I just think it's such an overreaction. Most of it's from grown adults as well, so it's slightly concerning if you ask me. But Luke, as a business, I'm someone who's, firstly, critical of Levy, Enoch, the board. I am critical. I mean, like you're saying, you're getting closer as well. I mean, I'm sure every majority of fans are. But as a business, I don't know about you, Luke, but I would certainly, as a business, any opportunity to get extra revenue, you would take it. I don't have a problem with it. But, however, I think Levy, again, and the board, Enoch, haven't helped themselves. Little things like that. I don't have a problem with it, but fans will. So I can't understand their frustration necessarily, but I can. It's silly if you think about that they've done that, because they know that fans are going to pick up on the tiniest little things. They all have it in their drafts, don't they? Anyway, ready to criticise Levy and Enoch. Like, for example, if Porro comes on and scores an own goal or gives the ball away for a goal, they're ready to criticise Levy. You didn't sign him permanently or something like that. They're all ready to criticise him straight away. You can tell. So little things like that aren't going to help him. I don't have a problem with him, because if you're thinking about Levy, I mean, yes, we've got Antonio Conte, and yes, we're still in the FA Cup. But what's the chances of us getting to the final? It's unlikely, isn't it? It's below 50% for sure. Yeah, it's unlikely. So for a start, and we're at Wembley. We're not at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. If it was here or nearby, I have a problem. But it's at Wembley, right? And do Levy and Enoch really need to be there? Not really. I mean, you'd hope they would be, but they don't necessarily have to be. And to make extra revenue for the club, I mean, the club making losses, so they need that extra revenue. After a lot of COVID, Brexit, people like to ignore the fact, like people highlight Levy and Enoch as excuses, and I pick them up for a lot of things, right? But things like Brexit, COVID, all these afterlogs, it isn't an excuse. It's a reality that every business has had to suffer with. And yes, it's not just them. And people think, they're a big football club, they can get away with it. But like the stadium debt, new stadium, it all costs, and I can't blame them getting extra revenue. But in looking at them and Levy, didn't he sit and think that the fans, little fans who've got nothing better in their lives, obviously a sad life, than to pick at him for Beyonce to, having the concert same day the FA Cup final? Doesn't bother me, Luke. But for people who have a sad life like that, didn't Levy sit and think that they're going to pick him up on that? I mean, people are sad, and that is the reality. But
probably not. No,
Levy should be clever.
Levy doesn't
it's
care
not clever from Levy
about morons on Twitter, I don't think. But anyway, let's move on and talk about I was about to say all the single ladies that will be out on Tuesday night, but they might not be if they're as it's Valentine's Day. But we have a Champions League game on Tuesday night.
We do,
against AC Milan. Now, AC Milan, you think about them and you think, this powerhouse of a European club, with all that history in European competitions. But then your mind goes to Peter Crouch, Aaron Lennon, Gattuso fighting Joe Jordan on the sidelines, in the Champions League years ago.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited. I'm excited for the game on Tuesday. And I'm excited for, what might happen and how we might perform. But what are your thoughts before we go on to Leicester? Because I want to end on Leicester. Okay. What are your thoughts on the Champions League game?
I'm very excited, Luke. I always am for Champions League, but this is something special about it. I mean, obviously, I'm not thinking down the line of us having a chance to win the trophy, but it's just that we're in the Champions League, is what us fans all wanted. And there's something different about the Champions League. I love the Premier League and I love football, but for me, the Champions League is just something different. I hate the thought of not being in it next season, so I think enjoy it while you can. A little bit nervous about it. I mean, you look at AC Milan's form, although that gives me confidence and should give us fans and club confidence, there's always that fear that run of form can be changed and it'd be be typical Spurs, wouldn't it? But no, I'm fairly confident. 2 legs, and I'm going to the second home leg. So yeah, I'm absolutely buzzing, to be honest with you, Luke, and can't wait. I'm a little bit confident, but I always am when it comes to Champions League, because it's always a fit half and half nerves, half excited. You get the nerves, the tension gets the better of me when it comes to Champions League. It's just something better. But their form, like that comment highlights there, hasn't been great. And hopefully we can take advantage of that, because they're not in a great place like City were, and we took advantage of that. So hopefully we can do that. But yeah, I don't know about you, Luke, but with the Champions League, it's just something different for me, and I always look forward to it. You froze.
Okay, I'm back. I'm
Sorry,
back. Sorry, everyone.
misled.
Apologies about that.
Sorry.
So anyway, going back to the Champions League game, yeah, it kind of gives me Leipzig vibes in a way. We went away to Leipzig and Mourinho. So,
you're glitching again.
I hope that all the all the men and women whose partners don't like football have got each other some nice gifts, because it is Valentine's Day, so you're gonna have to swindle something if your partner doesn't like football. But yeah, I'm excited for it, and I'm hoping that we get a good performance and we get the win away from home, because that's most important, right?
Take a point, and then go into that home leg. Sorry, Luke. Yeah, take a 0-0 draw. Try not to concede as many goals as possible. I think get even a 0-0 draw, 1-1 draw won't be the end of the world. But I think take a point and going into that second leg, not being behind would be great. And I'm full of confidence, to be honest, and that's rare going into a Spurs game for me.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you. Right, so let's move on to the last section before we talk about Leicester, and that is the recent Daniel Levy. I don't want to call it a documentary. It was a half-an-hour episode, as far as I remember. Interview, yeah, about the new stadium called Building a Home, was what it was called. Now, again, there has been a lot of criticism about this, and a lot of people saying he lies, and a lot of people are, I want to also back the people that aren't ENIC out, because I think both sides need to have a discussion. And some people have said that they really enjoyed it, and it was really nice to see his passion and his kind of effort to kind of do something like this. People may call it egotistical, people may call it clever, people, you call it whatever you like. Few things that I liked about this episode, right? So one of the things that they did a lot of interviews with the architects who built the stadium.
Yeah, it was nice.
And he had a meeting, right, with them every Tuesday for nearly 7 years about the stadium. Sometimes it would take 2 hours. Sometimes it would take 7 hours, they claim, right?
Wow.
It has to show you something that this man who, with various business ventures and is a very wealthy man, never missed a meeting and always was there to make sure that everything was done possible. They wanted the South Stand to be specific amount of seats. Levy said, no, I need more than that. But I don't need more. I don't necessarily just need more seats. I need the acoustics. I need everything on point. Even such things as the glass around the top of the stadium. They made it glass because the material they usually use on these stadiums, it can wear over time and degrade due to weather and things like that. There was, he even obviously went around the stadium concourse and talked about it was important that the rubble from White Hart Lane was then reused in the new stadium. The centre spot was planned out. There are lots of things that this man, who claims he is a Tottenham fan, he does claim that, and I'm not saying he does or doesn't, right? Does for this club that are important. Now, people then go on and talk about the fact that he's got plans to build a cinema and a hotel nearby, and that's, for his own benefit and everything else. Now, I'm going to go off on one here, because someone on Twitter said it's gentrification, right? And I don't really want to go into the meaning because as much as I know something about gentrification, I don't want to get it completely wrong. But basically, long and short of it is that rich people go into a poorer area and redevelop it to then enable more rich people to come in. It forces the poor people out. That's the kind of, unless I'm completely wrong, long and short of it.
Right.
And therefore, doing all these things is a negative thing for the area. But why can we not see the flip side of that and say that, by building a new stadium in a relatively poor mixed
The area
race,
needs it.
all these different nationalities live there. I'm sure that you said in the interview over 100 languages are spoke within the communities. I'm not sure, again, the exact numbers on that. But what's wrong with being able to develop an area and to be able to give something back to the community? And those things then in turn benefit the club and benefit the money that comes in. Because if I'm flying from Scotland and I say, do you know what? I'm going to stay in that hotel because it's near the ground. I can come to the game. Surely that money comes back into the club as well. But
you will.
I don't know. Like what are your thoughts? Because you always wanted Levy to come out and speak. And this could be an old interview. It could not be present, but at least we got to see more of him.
Yeah, exactly. Luke, I don't care when it was recorded, whether it was done day before yesterday, whether it was done a year ago, whether it's done a month ago. I don't care, to be honest with you. The fact is he's done it, and I'm someone who's been, as you know, Luke, week in, week out, critical of Levy, Enoch and the board. But I feel being kind to them today, and they can be kind to him again, because I've always admired him in the business side of things. Right, and I don't have a problem with him like redeveloping the area, and he's come out and spoke. And whether people like it or not, and might not go down well, but I do think he does care, and my mind has changed. But I do think he does care about the club and does care about us fans. I think he's made some really poor footballing decisions in terms of when to sack managers. I think the recruitment's been poor at the club, but the business ideas, and he does care. So for people to say he doesn't care, to say he's lying, to say there's a poor idea to redevelop the area, they're all shocking opinions, to be honest with you. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but when it gets personal, that's not right. I'll never wish any harm on Levy, but I admire his business side of things. The area does need redeveloping, whether you like it or not. It's a poor place. It does need some redeveloping of some kind. I like the idea, like you said, that a cinema, like a hotel, that will attract revenue again for the club. So I question, Luke, why do fans have a problem with the club making money? Because if you don't make money, you can't buy players. And whether it goes into the players or not, I'm assuming it does. And whether every time we buy something, it helps. I'm sure it does help. And fans will sit here and go, oh, it goes into Levy's pocket. I'm sure. Of course, every business someone's going to go into the owner's pockets. Of course it is. But how are we going to buy a player if we're not making any profit or revenue? So if we want to buy the players that Chelsea and City are buying, which I can't see, but anywhere close to that, because they are distorting the market, that's something I agree on with Levy. I highlighted that this morning. They are the likes, I'm going to name them, the likes of City, now Newcastle and Chelsea. They're distorting the market, whether you like it or not. And that is the reality. And we can't compete with that. But you can't sign players if you aren't making a revenue. So I don't have a problem with Levy's doing. And I didn't watch the interview, right? I haven't yet. I will, but I haven't had a chance, but I will. And the bits I've listened to, I like. I think he's being honest. And again, I continue to say his footballing decisions, poor, but his business side of things, good. And I like it. And I support him in the business side of things. But it's time to step back, do what he does best, because he's a businessman. So stick to that and get Paratici to focus on the football side. And they have my absolute full support. And I mean it, because I admire him, the business side of things. A lot of things I really admire him for and would love to be as a businessman.
Yeah, so Ben said, I don't think he's going to have sleepless nights over us not winning trophies when he's bringing the money in. He is. And that, that bit is, it is important because that's what a lot of people claim is that, he's happy with top four and he's happy with, just competing and, kind of being there and thereabouts. And he's not that bothered about, winning.
It's a small club mentality.
And maybe you are right, Ben, and maybe I hate all these conversations in the sense of on this channel, my main aim is to talk about Spurs, right? But my other aim is to give other opinions that don't always necessarily go down with what the majority say, because I think it's important to talk about all different types of things. And, we have slandered Levy over his ability. I've said many, many times exactly what you said. Stand down from the footballing
It's time.
decisions and allow us to be able to, recruit the right amount of scouts, the correct scouts. Let's look at Brighton for a prime example of their scouting ability.
Fantastic what they do.
Just absolutely incredible. You can look at Trossard, you can look at Mitoma, you can look at Basuma, you can look at Alexis McAllister, you can look at Moses Caicedo. They have done an incredible job, and that's their business model at the end of the day, is to recruit cheap and sell on, and that's great. But there has to be something that does that. And one of the things that I wanted to touch on as well was actually mentioned in the financial figures. So I tried to read as much as I could, but it was a long old read. I wasn't going to sit there for hours and read the whole thing. But that was the one thing that I did notice, was that they mentioned about spending money, but they also mentioned about spending money in the right way, and that they don't believe the money has been spent correctly. Because I actually have it written down here. So I'm gonna bring this up. A lot of people probably slander me again, but I don't care. Bear with me. So I think we are fifth here we go. Well, we are fourth in terms of net spend, the highest net spend in the Premier League since 2018-2019. And we talk about the money that Arsenal have spent, right? Arsenal have spent £483 million in transfers since 2018-2019. Spurs have spent £424 million, which is roughly £59 million less than Arsenal since 2018-2019. I just find it outrageous that people say we don't spend money. But I do think it's absolutely correct that we spend money the wrong way. We haven't got the right scouting, and the other decisions, such as constantly sacking managers, has not helped with that. But to spend £424 million on transfers since 2018-19 and then claim that we don't spend money, I find it outrageous. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think this is something that I can agree with you on, Luke. To be fair, I think the money's been spent, okay, and I don't think managers have been backed. I don't believe Potter's backed. I don't believe Mourinho was backed, and I don't believe Conte has been backed yet. However, the money's been spent, but the recruitment for me has been poor. Like, for example, I read the other day, what was it? Again, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, in the comments, but I think something like 207, 208 million we've got on loan currently. Mainly that's Lo Celso, Ndombele, Brian Gill, etc. Right?
But about 100 million between Ndombele and Lo Celso.
Yeah, exactly. And but to be fair, when they were at the club, lots of fans liked what they saw from Lo Celso. I didn't, and I don't want Ndombele really playing for the club because of the attitude he has, to be honest with you. So partly I can understand, but that's poor recruitment. Surely there was somebody looked at Ndombele's attitude and work effort. All things go wrong, and sometimes you have to show a bit of ambition. But the recruitment has been bought at the club, but the money's been spent. But people think it's true that I disagree. I agree with you, Luke. That people go on about, we haven't spent any money, and that isn't true. But I'm also going to twist it the other way and go that people think that if you spend money, it means backing your managers. No, it doesn't. I think we discussed this before, Luke. I can start a new company. I can spend like £1 billion on it. Literally, this is made up £1 billion on it. But it could be all poor stuff and no plan, no structure, and it could be just buying poor stuff that's overpriced. So I think that managers haven't been backed at this football club in terms of listen to and go and get the player we want. Like Rodon's not getting Rodon wasn't backed, and Spence was probably a club signing. Danjuma was a clever club signing, but it's still a club signing. So managers haven't been backed. However, the money's been spent. But if the recruitment could be better, and so that's Levy at the moment, Luke. It was about 5 things, wasn't it, last week? And now it's only about 2, I would say, sacking managers and poor recruitment. So he's getting me on side. I wouldn't say he's getting me on side, but he's. I'm not going to criticise him as much because he has come out and spoke. And that's the reality. And he got done the Poro deal done. So you can't criticise him that much. And I think, like we had this discussion, didn't we, Luke, on Twitter the other day about people hating Levy. Hate's a strong word. Never wish any harm on Levy, right? So those fans, when I understand that some of it's passion, but it's way over the top and it's completely wrong. And the call fans out for this a long time ago, I think now. When David Gold sadly passed away, right? Rest in peace. When he passed away, fans chanted, "It should have been you." I understand passion, and people don't like Levy, and I understand that. But I'd never wish any harm on him. I don't hate him. I dislike what he does. I wouldn't even say I disliked him. I dislike what he does and what he stands for in a football side of things, Luke. I'd like to get your opinion on this, but I really wouldn't wish any harm on him. And it's just two things for me now that I've narrowed it down to, and that is the poor recruitment and the sacking managers.
Yeah, no, I agree. Ben said again, so thanks, Ben, for joining in. Make sure you are subscribed. But he's also said, my issue is when we get the cheap alternative, when we don't want to spend the extra 5 to 10 million on crucial players. And yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah. And that's where Daniel Levy needs to step away from these things. And, we need to just spend the money rather than, looking for a cheap alternative. We've talked about...
we need to be ambitious.
We've talked about Bruno Fernandes and Jenson Fernandes,
Like, the amount of deals that Levy's fluffed around on, sorry, Luke, the amount of deals he's messed around on, I mean... Big club ambitious. Like, for example, yes, we got the Porro deal done, and I'm very happy about that. So I'm not going to be one of these fans, right, who are going to moan about Levy for that because he didn't get him permanent leave, and there is an obligation to buy, right? So I'm happy with that. However, that took a long time to get done, and it took Arsenal 24 hours to sign Jorginho, and they announced it before us, and it took us 30 days for Porro and still announced it after. I know it's completely different, but that just shows them ambition going and paying the money. I don't expect us to act like Chelsea and City, but we just spend a lot of time over certain things, and sometimes a little bit of ambition perhaps is lacking because we are a top four club, and I don't have a problem with Levy's ambition getting us in the top four because that earns you billions, right? It earns you more than winning the FA Cup, that's for sure. I'd love to win trophies, but so I completely understand that, but he sometimes needs to show a bit more ambition. So yeah, there's only a couple of 2-3 things now I've narrowed it down to on Levy, and one of them would be stepping away and letting Paratici focus on the football side of things. Obviously, with these allegations, I can understand perhaps he doesn't want to do that. Then find somebody else to do that. But he does need to step back because I'm going to be honest, he doesn't have a clue about football. He's a very intelligent businessman that I respect, but hasn't got a clue about football. And that's going to leave it there.
Definitely. The last part I want to say is, the bit that frustrates me the most about it, and that's why I did tweet about this hatred, because I'm very intrigued by, people's perception on hate.
Hate's a strong word.
Yeah, and, dislike and discontent and frustration, but the words such as parasite gets used quite a lot.
Yeah,
and
I don't
find
like
it
it's wrong.
They use that word because and there are many connotations to that word, right? And I'm not going to go into all of them, but
yeah,
I believe the main reason they use it is he's sucking the life out of the club. But this was a club before Alan Sugar took over that nearly went out of business.
Fans forget that.
Then he bought from Alan Sugar, where we were finishing 10th, 11th, 9th, 8th, consistently. And this is consistently for a long time. Yes, Spurs did win a lot of trophies before ENIC took over, but football in itself has changed incredible amount. Nottingham Forest won a lot of trophies in Europe a long time ago. That doesn't mean that, they necessarily should be winning the Carabao Cup every season now.
Of course it doesn't.
But the way our club has been transformed has been good. It hasn't been quick enough. And that's, I think, the most frustrating for most fans. It hasn't been quick enough, right? We have progressed as a club, and you cannot sit there and say that he's sucking the life out of a football club when this football club has grown in stature tenfold since they took over. But as you say, there are important things that need to get done right if they are to compete. And I don't know if they can compete. And that's the biggest problem. I don't know if they can compete against City, Chelsea, United.
Yeah, being honest with you, I'm never going to ask us to compete with City and the likes of Chelsea, but I ask sometimes for a bit of ambition. To be honest with you, we got the Porro deal done, and that's the main thing really. But sometimes it's a little bit of ambition. I don't want us to be. I prefer the way we're run than City and Chelsea, to be honest. And again, maybe get criticised for this, but everything's done legally and done properly. And we are in a good place, and credit to Levy also for the stadium as well. I mean, that's fantastic as well. So, and that is, again, people use it as people say, oh, it's an excuse, but it is another reason, isn't it? Well, we haven't been able to spend, especially under Pochettino, that money because it cost a lot, obviously, and we're still paying the debt now. So, like I said, Lou, quickly, there is things like the business side of things, respect him for, but football side, I don't. That's the reality. Perfect. But hate is a strong word.
Let's move on to the Leicester game because that is today, 3:00 for those that are watching live. So those that are watching in the future, you already know what's happened. But let's talk about today's game. There's a few talking points. So big up to Jack from the Final Whistle. I know you were on there last night. So if you want to watch that back, Leicester fan channel. So go and watch that as well. Big up to him. But there's a couple of talking points I want to talk about. So Leicester are poor at the moment. They've been pretty poor all season, I believe. The talking points I want to talk about for Spurs really kind of go on to that right-hand side. So it's right wing back, right centre back. There's been talks this week that people want Porro to start. Emerson could even slot in a right centre back role. I personally don't like that idea, but there's an option. There's Davinson Sanchez. Don't like that option either.
Exactly. Yeah.
There could be an option that no one ever talks about, which is Eric Dyer moving across, Longley moving across, and Ben Davies playing there. There's no problem. People have this perception where a left-footed centre-back should only play on the left side. But why can a right-footed centre-back play in the centre and not a left side? So there is an option for that.
Anyway.
Yeah, there is an option for that as well. That's a very unlikely option, but there's that. So what do you think might happen? Because Emerson Royale was absolutely outstanding against Man City. And now you're turning around saying, is it fair to drop him for Porro, who's never played in the Premier League?
Yeah, as I said, I think Porro's a fantastic signing, but you often introduce signings to the bench. On the bench against City, if he didn't come on, obviously situation holding on is not the time, is it really, to introduce a new signing like Porro, to be honest with you. But thinking about it, Emerson has to start because if you look at Emerson, if you drop him, then if you're Emerson, right, you're in Emerson's head, right, and you're Emerson, you're thinking, I've been poor all season. The one time I step up, I've now been dropped. What have I got to do? I mean, that's been done in the wrong way. He's played at times. Conte's played him at times this season and stuck with him when he's been really, really poor. All us fans, said, you need to drop him. Now he's stepped up. It just doesn't seem right, does it, to drop him? So I want Emerson to start right wing back. I'm not the biggest fan of Davinson Sanchez. I've got family members and friends who are bigger fans of Sanchez than I am. Right?
Wow.
Dad likes him. Don't ask why. Don't know why. Yeah, we have this debate all the time. I just go.
Dad need to talk.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he's completely wrong about this, and he knows what I think about it. If you can hear me, he knows what I think. Right, and Sanchez always has a mistake in him. However, I would probably play him today because he's the most natural right centre back. Hopefully, he doesn't make a mistake. I hope this doesn't come back to haunt me. But I want to see him. I think Conte will play Emerson right wing back, Sanchez right centre back, which is probably what I do. I very rarely agree with Conte in terms of the team, but it's probably what I agree with. To be honest with you, it'd also be interesting. I'm assuming Perisic will also play left wing, but Emerson's got to start, and that's the main point. Where whoever plays in centre back, that's not my main concern. It's just as long as Emerson starts because of the recent performances. Otherwise, we could lose this form because of his confidence will drop. Being dropped, it may sound stupid, but I mean, he's also stepped up and he looks like he's got more confidence. So to drop him, I think that will have a damaging long-term effect.
Yeah, we've also got to consider things like Champions League on Tuesday night. So it's whether Perisic starts or whether they save him for the Champions League and they play Sessegnon.
Yeah, I would like to see Perisic and Porro start against AC Milan. Might be a bit ambitious. So perhaps we go with Sessegnon and Emerson today. I don't have a problem with that. Thinking about it, I mean, the main concern is right where he's centre-back without Romero.
Yeah, and then Ben said the same thing. It could be Sessegnon because of quick turnover.
Yeah, and I'd understand that. And fans don't see Luke. Sorry, you see when they react on Twitter to the lineup, right? They go, "Oh, absolutely outrageous! Sessegnon's playing, Emerson's playing, right?" They won't stop it. If Sessegnon plays, that'd be the reaction, right? I promise you. And because they don't sit here and think, "Oh, Perisic, he's getting old. He's not getting any younger now, is he?" Right? And we want him for the Champions League. They won't think about that. But yeah, I completely understand if Sessegnon playing. It didn't even come to mind actually. But the most important thing is the likes of Perisic and Porro, especially Perisic, play, on Tuesday, and that's the priority because the Champions League, as I said, is just something different.
Yeah, as you say, I think, looking at that Leicester side with Iheanacho in good form at the moment for them, and Davinson Sanchez potentially playing, at right centre-back. My worry for Davinson Sanchez is whenever the ball goes over his head, he has absolutely no idea where the ball is.
Yeah, and it's the likes of Luke Vardy coming on off the bench that I fear. The likes of the creativity of James Maddison, Tielemans, even Harvey Barnes. So there's players in that Leicester team that I fear. And I wouldn't say Iheanacho is one of them. I mean, I was, when I said last week, right, that I didn't fear Haaland outside the box. Turned out they got away with this, but I'm going to say it again today and hope they get away with it. I don't fear Iheanacho. There is other players that I do fear, like I named in Harvey Barnes, Maddison, Tielemans, Vardy off the bench. But I wouldn't say Iheanacho is one of them, but Sanchez is probably our biggest fear. Not one of their players, it's probably Sanchez, and that making mistake. So yes, it's a big question mark for Conte. I mean, he's got an hour or so to decide. Longer than that. The clock's wrong. Excuse me. But he's got a while to decide. Not decided yesterday. So it'd be interesting to see what he goes with, right? But I just think Emerson Royale's got to start, and I expect it to be Sanchez, and I hope he does have a good game. But I don't know about you, Luke, but I wouldn't sit there when Sanchez is playing. I can't sit back and relax. As Romero, you feel confident on the ball. Every time Sanchez gets the ball, I'll be worried. At least
Yeah,
not on TV.
the only thing I rate Sanchez on, and I think which is why clubs see it, is his pace as a centre back. He is quick. I remember I was at the preseason game against Rangers, and I was actually really impressed when he was defending on the side that we were sitting at. And I was impressed by that. But I think his awareness as a player, his maybe it's the fact that he hasn't had a good run of games.
Maybe, but you need more than pace.
He looks a bit nervous on the ball.
Yeah, you need more than pace to be good at football, because there's someone like Usain Bolt. I mean, he's quick. You don't want him to be playing centre back, so you can have pace, but he needs more to his game than that. And just that he can have, when you think he's having a good game, a bit like Dyer really, but in a different sense. He always has that mistake in him. We have a lot of these players at Tottenham, right? And who when we think they're having a good game, they always have a mistake in them. Lloris had a great game against City, but one of the last kicks of the game, he messed up his goal kick right towards the end, for example. So I think he's a player who has a mistake in him, and he just can't seem to judge the flight of the ball, which is really odd, and it's one of the basic things as a defender. So I won't feel comfortable with him playing today, but it's probably the only answer. I can't wait for Romero back.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go through score predictions. So if you are watching, put your score predictions in the chat, and we'll see who gets the closest. We'll also put a poll on Twitter after today's show where you can vote on who you think is going to get closest to the results. So let's start. I think I won last week, Harry, because I think you had it down as a draw. Or did you?
No,
I had it as a draw and you had it as a win, so you beat me. Okay,
Thank you.
I'll let you off.
I had it down as a 2-1 win.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts today on score predictions?
It's an interesting one. I don't know why I'm not that confident, right? But I'm more confident than I would be, considering I run a form. But I still sit here now thinking, those Leicester's attacking players against our second keeper and without Romero, it's a slight concern. I mean, I think it's going to be goals in there, always, between Tottenham and Leicester. 2 good attacks and 2 poor defences, which I touched on the final whistle last night. I'm going 1-1, and I'll take a point. And this may be slightly unpopular, but I take a point, to be fair, away to Leicester, who've won and got a little bit of confidence. A few players coming back. So I'll take a 1-1 draw with a few injuries and suspensions. I will take a 1-1 draw. I'm going 1-1.
Perfect. Ben in the chat has said 3-1 to
Very
Spurs.
positive.
I think we need a win. I think it's important for the league. I think it's important.
That'd be massive
for the Champions League game. I'm going to go similar to Ben. I'm going to go 2-1 Spurs.
Okay.
With fourth string goal. I'm hoping that he doesn't concede many, but we often concede. So I'm going to go 2-1 Spurs. But we will find out come 5 o'clock tonight. We'll know what the final score is. And we'll know where we stand. And we're playing the same time as Arsenal today as well. So it's going to be...
hopefully Brentford could do us a favour.
Exactly. It's going to be interesting. Well, that kind of wraps us up for today. So, Harry, thank you very, very much for joining us again. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Harry, tell everyone about your show on Monday and how everyone can find you.
Thank you. Yeah, you can find me on all socials, most actively on YouTube and Twitter. Founder of Scarfy Spurs Talk. My personal account is there, Harry Scarf22. Yeah, Scarfy Spurs is like a fan channel, an independent hub, transfer news, more content coming. And yeah, I'm also going to be reintroducing those instant match reactions that I'm also excited about. Obviously, started my own show every Monday. Have my second ever show this Monday, where I'll be inviting, who's been active in the comments, Ben, who will be the guest on Monday. So I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, I'm also the co-host here at Park Lane Podcast every Saturday as well, which I always enjoy. So yeah, that's where you can find me. So appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you, Harry. I will be on Holly Agambar's show on Monday nights at 7 p.m. on her channel at Holly Agambar. So you can watch that, then go straight over to Harry.
Yeah, I'll listen to a bit of that. It's a good show.
And if you want to follow me, you can follow me, Luke_Park Lane. But more importantly, make sure you follow Park Lane Podcast on all social media. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the videos, and if you're listening on any podcast platform, don't forget to give us a follow and a 5-star review. But I want to thank everybody that's tuned in today. I want to thank everybody that is a Spurs fan, no matter your opinion, no matter what you love, no matter what you hate about Spurs. We're all in this together, and we're all a team at the end of the day. So thank you all very, very much. I'm hoping for a win today. And before we end, we'll say, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.